Scorpio, there's something you need to hear right now, not later. God is not punishing you by pulling you away from your family. He's protecting you. And if you're watching this, it's not by accident. It's divine timing. A sacred conversation is about to unfold, and you were meant to be here for it. September brings a divine reckoning for your soul, Scorpio. It arrives not with soft petals, but with winds strong enough to shake the foundations you've long outgrown. The ties that once felt sacred may now feel suffocating, and for good reason. What once held you in comfort has become a silent prison. And the one who loves you most, your creatoress, guiding you out. You are not being cast aside. You are being called upward. Outward. Inward. Back to your soul's true home. You may feel it already, a sense of being distanced, misunderstood, or even rejected by people you thought would always stand beside you. That sense of isolation is not abandonment. It is a sacred separation. A holy disruption. A divine relocation. What feels like loss is often preparation. God is not punishing you. He is rescuing you. You have carried burdens that were never yours to hold, Scorpio. You've been the peacemaker, the healer, the one who stayed silent to keep others comfortable. But this month, silence is no longer your assignment. Truth is. Alignment is. Return is. And if your heart feels heavy as you hear these words, if you're feeling seen in ways that are hard to admit out loud, then know this: your soul already recognizes the truth before your mind fully catches up. You are not just watching a video. You are answering a sacred summons. So let me take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for your presence here. Thank you for every like, every comment, every subscription that has supported this growing soul family here at Miracle of the Sign. Your energy, your voice, your faith, they matter more than you know. You're not just receiving a message today. You're activating it by being here. But I need you to stay with me all the way to the end. Because what the universe is about to show you isn't just a prediction, it's a blueprint. The clarity you've been praying for, the emotional release your body has been asking for, the sign you've quietly begged heaven to send. It's here. Scorpio, this is not just a turning point. It's a threshold. And you don't have to cross it alone. You've been strong for everyone else. Now, it's your turn. To heal. To choose peace. To stop shrinking. To stop apologizing for needing space, distance, truth. To stop confusing loyalty with spiritual imprisonment. So breathe. Let your shoulders fall. Let your heart open just a little more. And if something deep within you resonates right, know if a quiet yes is rising in your chest, and keep it inside. Confirm it. Speak it. Declare it. Take a moment to write in the comments below, I am returning home to my soul. God is guiding me out of what no longer nourishes me. Say it. Type it. Anchor it. Because your words create reality. And your presence here is proof you are being called into something higher, deeper, more aligned than what you're leaving behind. Now stay with me, Scorpio. Because what's coming next will help you understand why your spiritual relocation had to happen. And what beautiful, unstoppable things are waiting for you on the other side of obedience. Scorpio, What once felt like safety has quietly transformed into a silence that starves your spirit. The spaces you once called home, the people you once clung to for belonging, are no longer resonating with the truth you've begun to carry in your heart. You didn't wake up one day and decide to disconnect. Instead, you grew. You softened. You deepened. And that inner transformation created a natural distance between your evolving self and the environments that no longer support your peace. This isn't betrayal. This is becoming. When the soul is ready to ascend, it often outgrows the containers that once kept it warm. And sometimes, those containers are our very own families, the places we learned how to love, how to adapt, how to survive. But love is not meant to suffocate. Connection is not meant to cost you your authenticity. And you, dear Scorpio, are not meant to carry roles that no longer honor your becoming. What's happening now isn't rejection, it's redirection. A holy redirection into the arms of something more aligned with who you are now. The discomfort you've been feeling lately is not a punishment. It's an invitation. It's the soul whispering, there is more. You're allowed to have more. You're allowed to be more. This spiritual separation, as painful as it feels, is not a sign that something has gone wrong. In fact, it is a sign that something very sacred is unfolding. When you no longer fit the mold that once shaped you, it's not because you are broken. It's because you've healed enough to no longer need it. There's nothing wrong with needing to step away from those who cannot see you, hear you, or hold space for the depth you now embody. And let's be honest, this transformation isn't just emotional. It's energetic. It's karmic. You are clearing the weight of unspoken expectations and unconscious agreements that have kept you spiritually tethered to cycles that no longer serve you. This kind of untangling doesn't happen by force. It happens through grace. Through surrender. Through that sacred moment when you realize you don't need to keep proving your love through sacrifice. In astrology, the sign of Scorpio rules deep transformation, the death of illusions, the rebirth of self. You are not losing your family, you are releasing the version of yourself that needed their approval to feel worthy. That's not abandonment. That's sacred liberation. That's spiritual maturity. That's the courage to choose inner alignment over outer comfort. And while this may feel like a lonely path at times, remember that you are not walking away from love, you are walking toward a love that doesn't require you to disappear. A love that meets you where you are and calls you higher. A love that begins with how gently you treat yourself in this transition. Think of this as a pruning season. A sacred shedding. Just as vines must be cut back to bear sweeter fruit, your soul is being invited to release relationships that only survived through obligation. You are being prepared to welcome a different kind of connect, Iona soul family that sees you, not for who you've been, but for who you are becoming. People who will not ask you to shrink, dim, or stay small to keep the peace. If you've been waiting for confirmation, let this be it. The quiet sadness you've been carrying is not weakness. It's a sign that you're aligned with something holy. Something real. Something God ordained. So allow yourself to loosen your grip. Breathe through the discomfort. And when the tears come, let them fall. They are not signs of falling apart. They are signs of washing away everything that once kept you from the peace you've always deserved. You are not leaving your family. You are finding your way home. Scorpio, As you continue walking through this sacred unraveling, you may begin to notice that the very structures you once leaned on are beginning to tremble. The Tower card does not enter quietly, it arrives with the thunder of necessary disruption. But unlike what many fear, its presence is not chaotic by accident. It is precision. A divinely orchestrated collapse of all that no longer supports your becoming. When the Tower appears, it does not punish, it purifies. In astrology, the energy of Mercury retrograde invites reflection, revision, and reawakening. But when Mercury stations retrograde in your 4th house, the domain of family, roots, ancestral patterns, and the emotional foundation you were raised upon, it calls you into the most intimate chambers of your identity. It shakes the floor beneath your inner home, asking, what have you been building your life upon? Is it love or is it obligation? Is it alignment or adaptation? And when these two forces meet, Mercury's reversal of thought and the Tower's crumbling of illusion, you are not being cursed. You are being cleared. Stripped bare of the roles you were taught to perform, the peacemaker, the silent sufferer, the emotional anchor for others. You begin to realize that many of the dynamics you've accepted as normal were never truly nurturing. They were contracts you silently signed to belong. And now, they are being torn up so your soul can finally speak. This process may feel like grief because in many ways, it is. It's the grief of letting go of false stability. The grief of releasing who you had to be, in order to become who you truly are. But hidden in that grief is a miracle. The miracle of clarity. Of seeing clearly what was never love, only fear dressed in loyalty. Of realizing that peace is not something you maintain by staying small, it's something you claim by standing tall. Energetically, this moment echoes a deeper cosmic truth, that breakdown always precedes breakthrough. The Tower does not fall to destroy you. It falls to reveal the truth buried beneath all that performance. The truth that you deserve to live free. Not just free from others' expectations, but free from your own internalized pressure to carry what's no longer yours. This is your sacred permission to drop the weight. To let the walls fall. To stop calling survival a success story. You are allowed to want more than just endurance. You are allowed to want joy, softness, truth, space. You are allowed to rebuild not out of fear, but out of reverence for what your heart knows it needs. Mercury's retrograde movement through the House of Origins also offers a symbolic review of inherited beliefs, those passed down silently from generation to generation. Beliefs like, family is everything, even if it costs you yourself, or, you must earn love through sacrifice. But now, those beliefs are being interrupted. And it's not rebellion. It's restoration. You are not betraying anyone by choosing peace. You are not failing anyone by choosing boundaries. What you're doing is honoring your inner light, the one that was dimmed for the sake of harmony. And the beautiful truth is, the world doesn't need more harmony at your expense. It needs your honest, grounded presence. This is not about turning your back on family. It's about turning toward yourself. Because when you stop performing for love, you finally open the door for love to find you, real, reciprocal, respectful love. And it starts with the way you choose to love yourself now, in the ruins, as you begin to rebuild. So if it all feels like it's falling apart, that's because it is. But only the false things. Only what was never truly holding you. And as those things fall away, what's left is you. Whole. worthy, ready, and for the first time in a long time free. Scorpio, when the number 999 begins appearing in your life in repeating sequences like 909 or 1919, in addresses, totals, timestamps, or even random moments that seem strangely timed, it's more than coincidence. These numbers act as energetic signposts. They do not just speak to the mind. They resonate with the soul. And when you're attuned enough to notice them, it means you're already walking through a passage you might not yet understand, but your spirit does. In numerology, 9 is the number of completion. It is the sacred threshold between what has been and what is yet to come. It is a closing door with another waiting just ahead. But what's so profound about this number isn't the ending itself, it's the deep internal shift that prepares you to walk away from what no longer serves you, without guilt, and without looking back. These signs often arrive gently but persistently. A familiar song playing right when you need reassurance. A white feather on your path while walking through a silent emotional decision. A message from someone long gone who suddenly reappears with words you didn't know you still needed to hear. These are not just signs. They are threads. Threads of meaning. Threads of comfort. Threads of alignment. When the fabric of your life begins to unravel, these signs offer sacred stitching. They say, you are not losing your way. You are being woven into something new. You may begin to notice how many of these signs arrive not with noise but with quiet precision. Not during the chaos of the day, but in still moments, driving in silence, looking out a window, lying awake before dawn. That's because endings speak to us softly. Not because they lack power, but because they are deeply personal. No one else may understand why you suddenly feel the need to leave a relationship, walk away from a job, or stop answering certain calls. But your soul knows. The numbers are simply there to reflect what your intuition has already whispered. The deeper message behind these signs is not just about ending a chapter, it's about ending a pattern. You are being asked to surrender an old belief system that equates love with sacrifice. For so long, you may have believed that in order to be worthy, you had to give everything. That being loved meant carrying the weight of others. That silence equaled safety, and suffering earned connection. But this stage of your life demands something radically different: the courage to love yourself without apology. The willingness to walk away without waiting for permission. The grace to say, this is over, even when no one else understands why. And this is where the power of 999 becomes even more meaningful. Because the universe is not just ending things around you, it is mirroring the end of something within you. A core wound. A contract. A cycle that has defined your relationships for far too long. But here's the beauty of this moment. When you let go of what you were never meant to carry, your hands finally open to receive what has been waiting for you all along. Peace that doesn't demand silence. Relationships that don't require performance. A life that honors your inner rhythm instead of erasing it. So if the signs have been showing up, don't dismiss them. Don't explain them away. Instead, pause. Listen. Let yourself believe that you are truly being guided, not to survive, but to evolve. And though the path ahead may still be unclear, know this: endings always speak in symbols. Not to confuse you, but to awaken you. To remind you that you are not lost. You are simply crossing into the next version of who you are. And every sign, every feather, Every 999 is simply the universe saying yes. Keep going. You're doing it right. Scorpio, healing does not always begin with joy, it often begins with disorientation. When everything you've known starts to slip through your fingers, it's natural to feel like the ground beneath you is no longer stable. You may question if you're being punished, if you've done something wrong, or if you are simply not enough. But what you are experiencing now is not abandonment. It's the quiet unraveling of all that no longer aligns with who you're becoming. It's the dismantling of identities built on survival so that you may finally start to live. When the external world begins to shift, especially in the realm of relationships and family, it can trigger an emotional earthquake. The people who once felt like home may now feel foreign. The roles you used to fill effortlessly, peacemaker, caretaker, the strong one, now feel like costumes you no longer wish to wear. And when you start to take those costumes off, when you stop performing, you may feel exposed. Raw. Alone. But solitude is not the enemy here. In fact, solitude is often the sacred womb where new life begins to grow. From an energetic perspective, you are not losing people, you are shedding frequencies. You are no longer able to sustain connections that feed on your silence, your compliance, your endless willingness to bend. Your system, both emotional and energetic, is purging what it no longer has the capacity to carry. This may feel like loss, but in truth, it is relief. It is relief disguised as heartbreak. And it's okay to feel both. In astrology, the fourth house where this energetic work often originates governs the roots, the lineage, the psychological foundation you were raised on. And when transits or retrogrades activate this area, they stir the deepest emotional sediment. They bring to the surface all the ways you've learned to adapt in order to feel safe. But those adaptations, while once protective, may now be limiting. And the invitation is to release them, not because they were wrong, but because they have completed their purpose. One of the most powerful self-healing practices during this kind of spiritual shedding is the conscious cultivation of gratitude. It may sound simple, even cliché, but neurologically and vibrationally, gratitude reorients the nervous system. It helps the body register safety in the present moment, rather than seeking it in the approval of others. Gratitude turns the attention away from what has been lost and gently opens your awareness to what is still here. The pillow beneath your head. The breath in your lungs. The subtle rhythm of your own heartbeat, reminding you that you are still alive and more than that, you are still becoming. Try placing your hand over your heart before bed. Feel its warmth. Let your breath slow. And then, even if your mind resists, even if your heart feels heavy, name 3 things you are grateful for. They do not need to be profound. They only need to be true. Small moments of beauty. Tiny victories. A memory that still brings comfort. A smile you received when you needed it most. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is spiritual remembering. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it softens the edges. It allows you to hold grief and hope in the same hand, without needing one to overpower the other. As you walk through this season of emotional refinement, know that what is falling away was never meant to follow you into your future. The discomfort you feel now is temporary, but the healing it creates will echo far beyond this moment. Trust in your own unfolding. Trust that your soul knows exactly what it's doing, even when your mind can't yet make sense of it. And trust that every time you choose truth over comfort, clarity over control, and authenticity over approval, you step deeper into the life you were always meant to live. Scorpio, in the quiet undercurrents of your life, you've been carrying more than most people know. You've shown up where others would have disappeared. You've held emotional space for others without ever being asked if you had room for yourself. And over time, that invisible labor both at home and in your professional world became not just a habit, but a hidden identity. The truth is, you've worn responsibility like armor. But now, your soul is asking for something radically different: release, recalibration, and return to your true value. When we speak of work and money, we're not just talking about income or tasks. We're talking about energy exchange. Every hour you offer, every effort you give, every emotional labor you expend is a currency. And when your internal value system is aligned with your outer reality, that currency flows. But when you are consistently underpaid, overworked, or emotionally manipulated into doing more than you signed up for, there is a leak in your energetic economy. You feel drained not because you've failed, but because the math no longer adds up. Astrologically, Scorpio's relationship with power and transformation is profound. You are the phoenix sign, the alchemist, the truth seeker. You were never designed to stay in systems that minimize your worth or silence your deeper calling. So if your career or financial life has felt like a loop of exhaustion, frustration, or invisibility, it's not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're being called to restructure from the inside out. This part of your journey is about honesty. Radical honesty. Ask yourself, am I working in environments that recognize my gifts or merely use them? Am I staying because I believe in the mission, or because I'm afraid of starting over? Am I letting fear dictate my path, or am I choosing freedom even if it means walking through uncertainty? Often, we stay in jobs, roles, or financial dynamics that we've outgrown because we fear instability. But the truth is, no external paycheck will ever provide the security you long for if internally, you feel depleted and unseen. Real security comes from alignment. When your work reflects your truth, your body relaxes. Your nervous system calms. Your creativity reawakens. And yes, money responds differently. Because abundance is not just about what you receive. It's about what you allow yourself to stop tolerating. Now may be the time to get practical. Revisit your finances not from a place of scarcity, but from a place of sovereignty. Separate what you owe from what you've been guilted into covering. Examine your income sources and ask yourself if they reflect your current frequency. Simplify where needed. Upgrade where inspired. And remember, starting over does not mean you've failed. It means you've matured. If the traditional workplace no longer fits, that's okay. You may find your next chapter involves something more heart-centered. Consider work that is soulful, flexible, healing, or creative. You might be drawn toward emotional coaching, trauma-informed care, art therapy, spiritual guidance, writing, or even curating experiences that help others reconnect with their own stories. This is especially true for Scorpio, whose intuitive depth naturally lends itself to transformation work both for self and for others. No matter where you are today, whether contemplating a shift, managing burnout, or rebuilding from scratch, know this: your worth is not up for negotiation. You are not a vessel for others' expectations. You are a lighthouse, a guide, a presence meant to illuminate, not to be consumed. This is your moment to return to the truth of your inner value, and when you do, the universe adjusts accordingly. Because what you allow, you affirm. And what you affirm, you attract. Choose wisely. Choose boldly. Choose yourself. Scorpio, your light was never meant to be dimmed just to make someone else feel more comfortable. You were not created to shrink yourself into boxes that suffocate your truth. You do not need to lessen who you are in order to be loved. And if someone told you otherwise through words, silence, neglect, or control, then this is the divine invitation to return home to your essence. In this chapter of your life, love is no longer about survival, tolerance, or performance. It is about truth. And truth will always set you free, even if it first breaks the illusions you once mistook for love. This moment is not about judgment, it's about clarity. Many Scorpios have been taught, often through deep emotional wounding, that in order to keep love, they must hide parts of themselves, play small, be agreeable, or bear the emotional weight of others. You've been the one holding everything together. You've been the healer, the empath, the fixer, and sometimes, the silent sufferer. But the energy right now is shifting. The universe is lovingly yet firmly asking, when will you choose yourself? If you're single, this is not a punishment, it's preparation. Being alone right now is not a void, it's a sacred cocoon. You're not waiting for someone to arrive, you're being called to become someone so whole that when love does show up, it is not a rescue mission, it's a co-creation. Your future partner is not coming to rescue the broken pieces, they are coming to build something eternal with someone already rooted in their divine worth. Your self-love is the blueprint for that sacred union. And if you're in a relationship right now, this is the moment to see it through a new lens. Does this relationship honor the light in you, or does it constantly dim it? Are you shrinking so someone else can feel big? Are you giving up your voice so they don't leave? Scorpio, your soul knows. And sometimes, the ache in your chest is not a sign of love, it's the voice of your spirit crying out for freedom. True love doesn't demand your silence. It doesn't require your invisibility. It invites your full presence. It sees you, hears you, and mirrors back to you the beauty you've been afraid to claim. If your relationship only works when you're smaller, quieter, or in constant sacrifice, then that's not a relationship, it's a transaction dressed as devotion. From a deeper healing perspective, these patterns are often inherited, passed down through generations, where women and men alike were taught to equate love with suffering. But just because you were born into pain doesn't mean you have to stay married to it. The divine is not asking you to be loyal to dysfunction. It is calling you into a new covenant, a higher frequency of love that begins within. When we look through the lens of sacred healing, we understand that every relationship in your life has been a teacher. Some taught you joy. Others taught you boundaries. And some came to break you open, so the real you could rise. Don't hate the ones who couldn't love you fully, they were never meant to. They were only ever meant to awaken you to the truth of what you truly deserve. And now, you are being called to stop negotiating with your light. Love that is destined for you will never ask you to shrink. So I ask you now, Scorpio, are you ready to love yourself like you've always wanted someone else to? If this message speaks to your soul, leave a comment below and say, I will no longer shrink to be loved. Let this be your declaration. Anchor this shift. Your voice is sacred. And remember, you are not alone on this path. You are divinely guided, always. This is miracle of the sign, and your healing has already begun. Scorpio, if you've made it this far, it means your soul is ready to come home. Not the home you were born into, but the one your spirit has been seeking through every storm, every sleepless night, every heartbreak that left you questioning your worth. This message today wasn't just a coincidence. It was a spiritual appointment. A quiet knock on the door of your soul to remind you, you were never meant to carry all this alone. You've been strong for so long. You've been the healer, the protector, the one who smiles while silently breaking. But now, something sacred is shifting. You are being called to stop surviving and start receiving. Because this isn't just about overcoming the past, it's about remembering who you've always been before the world taught you to shrink. Yes, the pain was real. The betrayal cut deep. And for too long, you've felt like an outsider in your own story. But here's the truth. Your soul family, the ones who will see you, honor you, and stand beside you without asking you to be anyone else, they are closer than you think. And they're not arriving by accident. They're being drawn to you because you are finally becoming visible to yourself. You don't need to chase. You don't need to convince anyone to love you. The moment you release what no longer serves you, space is created for what is divinely aligned to find you. That is the energetic law. That is your inheritance. And this home you're returning to? It's the home within you where peace, purpose, and presence live. Maybe the reason you've been feeling so heavy is because you've outgrown your old life. And that's okay. You're allowed to leave behind the identity built in survival. You're allowed to step into the version of you that lives in joy. Not because life is perfect, but because your soul knows it deserves more than pain. So now the question is, are you ready to say yes to what's already waiting for you? If you felt spoken to today, not just heard, but deeply seen, take a moment to anchor this transformation. Go to the comments and declare your readiness. Write, I give myself permission to step out of pain and into my divine destiny. Or, I am being guided by God, and I choose to follow. If this video helped you remember your truth, click the like button so we know this message found the right heart. And subscribe to Miracle of the Sign to keep receiving soul-anchored guidance at the exact moment you need it. You don't have to do this alone anymore. You never did. But now, you're ready to come home. And that changes everything.